Right. Welcome, everybody. BNL Behind the Brand Global. We are here with the man of the hour, Mr. Luciano Morales, as he's playing guitar for us. He's possibly going to make us some intro music. Huh, Nick?
I mean, I think we can sign.
I did, like I said before, I'm just fooling everybody. I don't play. I just play by ear.
You play better than us.
Well, you
It's
fool
a
me.
beautiful guitar
Yes.
offered by Peter Gross and the ATL family.
Yes.
Well, with that being said, welcome everybody to another episode of Barrels and Leaves Behind the Brand. Leo Brown is your man, and also Nicholas Vaughn in the house. And as you guys can see, we have Mr. Morales, Luciano Morales. Let me be proper with that. We are in the Gross studio at an undisclosed location. We cannot tell you guys where we are, but it is a Gross studio. We have the ATL.
Super gross, isn't it?
We have the ATL family here with us. We do have Janelle in the house. We have Leroy in the house, and we do have Peter in the house as well. So thank you guys.
Mascot. We have the mascot in the house.
And the mascot is in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you guys for joining another episode. Thank you guys for pulling out your cigars with us. This is going to be a lot of fun, you guys. We're going to bring a lot of, how do I say this? Disclosed, undisclosed information. Just real information. How about that?
Yeah.
Real tobacco knowledge. That's what we're here for, tobacco and your liquor knowledge as well. So we're going to try to get into some real conversation with Mr. Morales here.
High expectations here, man.
I know, man.
High expectations.
Good. I love it. So the first thing I do want to talk about is you distributing, collaborating with ATL Cigar Co.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us how that came about? What was the thoughts behind saying, hey, you know what? I want to get with these guys, or what happened when they came to you and said, hey, we want to get with you and do the distribution with us? How did that come about?
So one day I met my wife, right? And I remember I was dating this girl for 4 years. And I knew I was never going to marry her. We just kind of used to each other. We had this kind of almost like weird relationship. So one day I met my wife, who broke up with this girl, met my wife. And the first time I saw her, I felt like I knew her from somewhere. And I started asking her questions like, so did you study in that school that I went to? Because I've seen you, before. I mean, we spent some time together before, because it's impossible. I realized that I didn't actually met her before, but it felt like, there was this kind of past life thing,
Mm-hmm.
And I think the same thing occurs with friendship, and the same thing occurs with businesses. Sometimes you just know it, right? I remember picking up Leroy and Peter at the airport in Esteli. And it's a fun story, actually. It was quite an accident that we met. So a very good friend of mine told me about this company that wanted to make cigars with us. And I found out later that actually ATL was not that company. It was a different company. But they came over to Esteli, and we hang out. We made this amazing friendship. They stay over at my place, and we nearly connected. So if I have to answer like how this happened, I think was definitely because God put us together. I think that's the answer. The kind of shortest version is that I believe that whatever faith you have, high energy, high power, God put us together, and we're very blessed. So consider them partners. Peter is our COO now at Luciano Cigars. ATL is part of our family. We have this distribution agreement as well as manufacturing, and it's been wonderful, man. Since its inception.
How Leo and I met, right? It was divine intervention.
It truly was. I mean, we met was just, I don't want to say by accident, like you say, kind of like, an act of God, I mean, I've been following ASW Distillery since I was in San Diego, which was some years ago. And I always knew that whenever I came back to Atlanta, I was like, I got to go by ASW. And I got a chance to win a bottle, right? It was a signed bottle by one of the owners. No, it was one of the distillers. And, got the bottle, came out here and went back to San Diego. Then I moved back here. And there was an event that was happening down at Studio Cigar Lounge where I work at, right? And Nick was there, and the bar manager that was there said, Leo, you gotta meet Nick. He's a great guy. I was like, okay, cool. I'll talk to anybody. We met, we talked, and it seemed like I was just stuck in conversation with him. And it just, we just formed a friendship. Yes,
Yeah, it was, kind of like you mentioned, it just kind of, it's one of those things that just organically happens. There's no, there's no,
planned or
it's not planned. It's not struggle. It's just boom. Here it is. This is what we're doing. Love it. Let's roll with it. So,
man, it was really awesome. I mean, to have the cigar knowledge that I have, or tobacco knowledge that I have, and then mix it in with the liquor knowledge that Nick has, and the whole purpose of Barrels and Leaves is bring those things together that we love and enjoy. So what better person to have than Nick, who can bring that other side, and I don't have to do all the other work. That's really what it came down to.
Yeah. It always helps to have strength in numbers, right?
Absolutely. So I love it. I appreciate Nick. And just like you said, it's just one of those things that just comes together, and that it fits and it works, so I'm happy to have him, and hopefully he's happy to have me,
Yeah, most of the time.
Even though he keeps me.
If you guys in the room, just let me know.
Wait a minute. Hold on.
I believe that the world is lacking like the pure relationship. When you meet people not with ulterior motives, not because there's something, the value exchange. It's just because you recognize a good soul, you recognize there's a character, there's good people, and you just want to hang out with.
Yeah, right.
And that becomes synergetic into beautiful things like what you guys do and this podcast and everything you guys be doing together. So I feel privileged to be here today.
Yeah.
Appreciate the invitation.
No,
we're honored.
We thank you, because this was literally like off the cuff. You want to do this? And you were just so welcome. It's like, yeah, when do you want to do it? And I was stunned at that point. I was like, wait a minute, when the hell are we gonna do this? What are we smoking, Nick? We were smoking the Maria Lucia.
Yeah, the Maria Lucia. Yeah, it's wonderful.
And we got this from Luciano.
Yeah. By the way,
Yeah,
great with coffee.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you talk to us a little bit about this blend?
Yes.
What is this that we're actually smoking?
Yeah, I can talk about the blend. My son, we're gonna start with some crazy shit. The blend was made with intention to connect with a very kind of sensory experience of my childhood. So it represents. It's a blend that was made to a tribute to my biological mother, who passed when I was 12 years old. And the memories I have of her is like the texture of her skin, the sound of her voice, the smell. She used to smoke cigarettes, and I remember like the tobacco kind of mixed with the cologne that she had. So, and also her personality, which later on I could see things about her life and what she did. And then I had this crazy idea of creating a cigar that would kind of represent those characteristics. I know it sounds crazy, but the way I interpret it, flavor, smell, is sometimes through texture, sometimes through sound. It was quite interesting to develop this project. So it has a Peruvian tobacco on this cigar, a Peruvian Pelo de Oro, Dominican tobacco from La Canela, just one leaf of each, and then we have a predominant Nicaraguan tobacco there as well, and we double bind this with Sumatra, and it's covered by a Connecticut broadleaf.
Wow.
Is that common in the cigar world to use a double binder, or what's the thinking in that?
I honestly, I don't know. I think I know a lot of people that do that. I like to use a double binder just because of the layer, the extra layer that creates. It's good for construction. It's good for box press as well.
Right. Yeah.
And also you can play more with flavors, especially flavors that you want to perceive in the front palate.
Yeah.
You know, like under your tongue, like your nose, floral, the aroma. You know. So double binder is a very interesting way to structure a blend. You know, I like it. I know a lot of people that do too.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I want
It's
to.
quite common, but so it's not something.
So it's
unique.
not uncommon.
It's not uncommon.
Okay. So that's one of the things I definitely wanted to talk about
Mhm.
is the not necessarily the process, but I want to talk about tobacco. And I talk about this. There's a lot of buzz around the word culture when it comes to cigars.
Mhm.
And I think that people take it on as like a term of like hip hop. Hip hop is a culture. Hip hop started, as most of us know or should know, is that it started in New York. You know, it came at a time where we're standing around on the sidewalks, you know, predominantly black, standing around on the sidewalks and, you know, putting together rhymes, you know, even childhood rhymes. And then it turned into other rhymes that made sense about what was going on at the time, right? That's a culture to me. You know, no one can just walk in and say, hey, I'm part of the hip hop culture because I rap, right?
Mhm.
The culture of cigars or tobacco means a lot to me. And I really would like to talk about the culture of tobacco. I always tell people is that, listen, you weren't born in Cuba, you weren't born in the Dominican Republic, you weren't born in Nicaragua, what have you, around those tobacco products, around tobacco. You are in the culture, right? Because growing up as a kid, I'm sure you can attest to this, and I want you to talk about it, is that you grew up in that culture. You understand what it means to pick a leaf from the stalk. You understand what it means to plant the seed.
Mhm.
Can you talk a little bit about how you have grown up in the culture of tobacco and where you, I don't want to say progress to, but can you talk about that as far as, you know, as far as back when you were a kid, when you remember picking your first leaf, whatever, and where you are today as a master blender?
Oh man.
That's a lot. I know.
I told you we were going to dive deep.
No, listen. I think there is a caveat in your question that I want to highlight. I actually, I understand where you're coming from. I understand when you see people coming, you know, and just kind of embracing the coolness
Right.
of cigars, and then imagining just by doing that they become tobacconists. You know?
Right.
But it is. I understand that frustration, but there's another perspective too. I want to call your attention to. I did not grew up picking leaves. I've learned tobacco actually uh, on my early 30s.
Wow.
So I was
And
not
what, you're
born.
35 now?
I was not born. No, I'm 40, 48. I was not born into into the cigar culture. But I have a funny story for you. Like recently, I met a guy, Cuban guy, who wanted to introduce his son to me. This Cuban guy left Cuba when he was about 5 or 6 years old, and he he told me the story that actually his great grandfather worked in a tobacco farm. You know, one of the first kind of, you know, like 400 years ago, 300 years ago, and the way he introduced his son to me was like, oh, this is the fourth or the fifth generation of uh, of a Cuban tobacconist. And I look at the kid. The kid didn't know shit about tobacco.
How old was he?
So he's I don't know how old he is. He's probably in his 20s or
Oh,
something.
wow. Okay.
But he had absolutely no clue about anything about tobacco. And there's this presumption that if you're a Cuban, you are a tobacconist, right? Which is silly. I respect a lot legacy brands. I respect the history of the forefathers of the cigar industry. I think that will never be a new Padron. There will never be a new, Rocky Patel.
Right.
Rocky Patel kind of created a very interesting culture in our business. So he's a marketing genius and a super resilient, guy. But my point is, I don't know, man. I think that term is very, very complicated. What I think people are searching right now is always for truth. You know, I think people don't buy that shit anymore of, third, fourth generation of tobacconists.
Right.
So look at what Jonathan Drew did with Drew State, a guy that had absolutely no tobacco background.
Right.
And he went to Esteli. He lived there for years. He learned that culture. So he immersed a beautiful business of it, and he developed his own culture on the cigar industry. You look at guys, I don't know, like Alan Rubin, of Alec Bradley.
Right.
So a guy who also didn't come from any Cuban background, never worked in tobacco fields, but he learned the business. So he spent time in Honduras, he spent time in Nicaragua. So he learned so when you ask the question about how I became a master blender, I don't consider myself a master blender. I think that no one who calls themselves master blenders are master blenders. I think master blender is a title that's given to you.
I've
It's
heard
not
that
a
so
title
many
that
times. Yeah.
you can claim yourself. If people smoke some of our products and they are happy with, and call you a blender, a master blender, it's nothing we can do, right? So we accept it. But I think that I am, and I'll always be a master student, and that's who you are. And you guys don't have to. I know you compare the hip hop culture. Hip hop has way more of like history and politics and culture and music all connect as an expression of a other culture. Actually, it's an expression of the black culture in America. I just want to highlight the other side as well. I think I chose to be in this industry because it was a healing process to me, because it was something that I always that kind of changed my life. We can get into it if you want later. um, and I believe that the way people are expressing themselves now, as much as we can get angry about the fact that some people just claim things that they are not, let's say, entitled to, um, there is this kind of craving in humanity right now for truth.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like people can both sides, right? So I can come to you and try to sell the bullshit of the fourth generation of tobacconists and stuff. You're gonna look and see, but you don't know anything about tobacco, so why are you saying this? So it's
Right.
just not true.
Right.
And at the same time, you're gonna walk into places where people might just kind of pretend they know something, like the same people dress up, but they
Yeah.
Right.
that group demands. But again, man, we're not here to judge anybody. I just feel like there's an opportunity right now in our society for people to say the truth, because we are craving it. Nobody believes anything anymore.
Right.
People don't believe in the government, don't believe
It's a whole bunch
in
of bullshit.
religion, and don't believe in, we don't believe each other. It's crazy.
I mean, it's a complex. I mean, there's so much around
Yeah.
cigars, tobaccos. I mean, we could go to any industry, and I think for me, being just again alluding to liquor, same thing. We want transparency.
Mhm.
We want to know what you're doing and how you're doing it, and
Yeah.
where does it come from? Why are you doing it? The why in it, and I think you nailed it perfectly. I mean, we call distillers master distillers, and
Mhm.
master of whiskey. What do you mean? Like you
Mhm.
don't. I mean, do you? I mean, because we're all learning. Are
Yeah.
you really mastering it? So,
Right.
I think it is. I think we're just obsessed with titles too in this country, and
You're never going to see guys like Ernesto Carrillo, which for me is one of the best blenders in the world, come and say, I'm a master blender. You're never going to see it.
Yeah.
So I know, because he was my mentor at the beginning of my journey, and that guy is one of the most humble guys I've ever met. He'll talk about tobacco, he'll talk about the blending, but he'll never claim to be a master blender.
Yeah.
And that's a very good point. I really do understand that. It's almost like in the, you are an influencer. I hate that title. I hate that name. Anyone who knows me knows that I don't like that. I believe that I'm still learning just as much as everybody else is, and
but that's kind of accurate, because it's okay to be an influencer. You got to take that platform to be an influencer of good. And I think it's actually easier for you to call yourself an influencer than a master blender.
I just don't. I hate that. I mean, I understand, I'm living in a world of social media. I get it. But I just really don't like that. I'd rather be known as someone who is more informational, right? So that I can share things with you. I don't like the whole influence thing. I'd rather tell you what it is that I'm smoking and I'm drinking and how well it is doing when it comes to pairing, whether it be complementary or contrast. I just really enjoy this world. I enjoy tobacco. And, that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, because I was talking to Leroy a couple of weeks ago, and he said, man, Luciano is just crazy in how he puts blends together. And he was describing how you would take one tobacco, put it with this tobacco and say, all right, here, smoke this and see how it goes. And you're like, no, it's not good. We need to do something else. As a blender, what makes you say this tobacco with this tobacco is going to be a good cigar? What's that thought process like?
I think it's I assume probably a chef, right? So you have to imagine the good ingredients in your head and cook in your head first. So, and that's a mental training, and I think you can learn that. The challenge I have is always to kind of create something different. That's a challenge that I put to myself. Hard to explain, but like some people, they have memory, right? So they can read things and memorize a book just by looking at a page, and it's all memorized. There is a blessing and a curse in my life, which is the fact that I can memorize flavors. I can basically replicate flavors that I had before. So I always felt like making cigars for me, it's almost like I was cheating all the time, because I can replicate an experience before. It's the challenge of every day for me. I want to create something that I haven't tasted yet. And I think that's a challenge.
So you said that you can replicate something again because you've done it before. That's most people, right?
If I've smoked before, no.
Right. Have you replicated? And I don't know. I'm just going to ask the question. I know this is, I don't know. So have you replicated another cigar before for somebody else?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I have.
All right.
I mean, listen, just to be clear, I have a disease called synesthesia, and that's why I do that. It's because it's in me, right? And so to be absolutely clear about this question, we all do that,
Thank you for saying that,
so we all learn, and then we use the elements that we have, that we learn, to kind of do things from creations like cigars, like food, like we always kind of we had that combination of flavors before. In fact, humans, they feel extremely comfortable with things that they experienced before, right? So we are afraid of the future, but we're very comfortable with the past.
Right.
So the more we experience things, the more comfortable we feel with them. That's why when you go to a different city and you want to try a restaurant, you always go to the restaurant you went before, and then you felt like comfortable. 4 or 5 different types of tobacco in Dominican, 4 or 5 different types of tobacco in Honduras, and it comes to a point where there's a connection between everything, and creating something that stands out, that's different from what you smoked before, is a big challenge, And I would say that it's always a 50-50 chance that you will succeed or that you fail. Like when you create a new trend or a new taste profile that people haven't experienced before, they might hate it because it's unknown to them, or they might love it because then a new trend has been set because of that disruptiveness. So I think a new blend.
I love the word disruptive.
Oh,
Like again, you can equate it to food, anything. I think that, and I think that's why people are hesitant to to really take that deep dive and believe in what they're doing, and then it doesn't work. It's a big hit, but that's the challenge, right? Is coming back and just continuing to kind of stick with what and what you've experienced.
Yeah.
And it's tough, because we're all emotional human beings, and when something doesn't work in our way, it can be damaging, really. So no, I love that.
Well, I don't look at stuff like that as necessarily like failure.
Yeah.
I look at it as it gives me something to keep going for.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing's a failure. It's almost like the word today that everybody's using, like, well, we're going to cancel them. You can't cancel anybody. What the hell are you talking about? I mean, I can recreate whatever it is that I want.
I think that the failure is not on our side. I mean, it's the fact that you're gonna create different things, and not everything's gonna work. Sometimes the blend is right, but the marketing isn't. And it might not work because of their marketing strategy. And that's why I say it's a 50-50. But I think our industry is getting so much better when it comes to new products. I see more and more different things coming out, and good cigars coming out from other manufacturers. I think we are blessed. We're living a very good time right now.
And I think that the cigar market is doing well, especially after COVID. I say it all the time. I got an opportunity to talk to Pete Johnson at PCA one year, and I said, Pete, what's going to go on with the tobacco? Now that we're in COVID, he said 3 years, 4 years, before we can get everything back. And sure enough, 2020 was a boom, I think, for the cigar industry. I think for a lot of industries, it was a boom, even the liquor industry, I'm sure. But now I think it's starting to not only come back, I think it's growing also, because I was looking at the numbers last week, and I believe that there were 1,000, well, almost like 2,000 more Nicaraguan cigars that were sold and bought, that increased the numbers. Dominican tobacco would jump in, Honduran tobacco. There was a decrease. I can't remember what tobacco it was, but there was a decrease. It was a slight decrease. But how do you see tobacco? This is my big question. How do you see tobacco being able to change? I believe that, tobacco is tobacco. My grandfather smoked tobacco or pipe, and my great grandfather did. But there's also, like we were talking about, like trends and things like that happen, right? Is there something that can necessarily, to use your word, disrupt the tobacco industry? Do you think that there's something out there that can?
So, like, create something new, different?
Yeah.
I think there's so many elements before we get to the final cigar that we just don't discuss at all. It comes from not just the texture of the leaf, like the primes that we are using. It comes from the amount of sun that tobacco receives. It comes from the seeds that feather that in that specific year. It comes from how you ferment, and how you ferment is something that I've been seeing more and more disruptiveness. I think people are learning different ways of fermenting tobacco. They learn that certain tobaccos, they ferment really well in cold temperatures. Some tobaccos, they ferment better in higher temperatures. Sometimes a variation of both. Like first 3 months, a little more the temperature. So there's so many variants right now in how you can actually create a different outcome and a taste profile just by the fermentation itself.
Yeah, can you touch on that a little more? Because for me, again, being a little more new into tobacco and the process, I mean, obviously fermentation is, you need it. It's it's in life, and we see it. I mean, it is a necessity when it comes to making beer, alcohol, wine, etc. There's certain places in the world where they use the indigenous habitat to create those fermentation processes. There's people that are creating their own proprietary type yeasts to kind of let that happen. But in terms of for me, just to understand a little more, what does the fermentation look like when you're working with tobacco?
How fermentation occurs?
Yeah, with
So it starts with the fermentation. So you have to understand that any living matter, any biological living matter, has yeasts and bacteria on, including our skin, our stomach, our mouths. There's bacteria and yeast all the time. And in order for us to survive, we need a balance between them. There's some bacteria that are very important for our digestion, and some yeasts that are very important for us to live, for the health of our skin and so forth. So tobacco is no different. It has bacteria and has yeasts on them. So fermentation occurs by the time that the tobacco starts drying. As soon as the tobacco dies, there's a process of fermentation that occurs. It starts on the hanging bars. So the first step when you upside down in the hanging bars, and that process is to dry the leaf, and it's the first kick where yeast start working on the tobacco. It's very similar to wine in a sense, because you want the yeast to take over the bacteria. As you know, there's always this fight between bacteria and yeasts too. So yeasts are very scarce. So when vinegar, for example, there's a lot of yeast on the vinegar, and that actually can kill 99% of bacteria. If I don't know if you ever did antibiotic treatment for any kind of infection. So when you get sick and you need to take antibiotics, so you're also killing some very good bacteria as well. So you kill the bad ones, but you kill the good ones too. That's why your stomach hurts. That's why sometimes you have skin rash, because when you kill the good bacteria, now the yeasts are taking over. It's very common for us to have yeast infections or rashes and stuff, just because we killed all the bacteria, right? In the tobacco, we want the yeast to survive. We want to make sure that the yeasts are working in the fermentation. And the yeasts, they have a very interesting function into processing the tobacco. So the yeast, when they interact with the oxygen, makes the ammonia released from the leaf. And the more you release of the ammonia, the more nicotine is, the more raw the leaf is. You feel harshness, you feel spiciness. Sometimes people they mix with strength, but it's actually just kind of under fermented tobacco. And there's absolutely no nicotine being delivered to you.
Wow.
Which is quite interesting. It's almost like a myth in our market, that strong cigars that are harsh and spicy. Nicotine it delivers to you. When actually it makes you sick because of the ammonia in your stomach.
So is that young tobacco then?
Yes, the tobacco isn't fermented. But going back to the process, so you hang the leaves first, and after 45 days, 45 to 50 days, depends, of the weather again, on those leaves are dry. So we bring them down from the hanging barns and we build pilones or piles of tobacco. 6 months without you actually moving that tobacco much, unless if temperature starts increasing too soon. Why the temperature increases? Because of the fermentation. When the yeast start taking over and releases the gases of the ammonia, and that creates a heat process, which also kind of, in some cases, that can add biomatter to the leaf. So the leaf goes thin, it becomes thicker, which is actually very desirable in certain types of fermentation. Have you ever seen some food you kind of forget to put in the fridge, and then later you see something growing on it? Same concept. Or yeasts that are actually developing more biomatter and adding biomatter to the leaf. And there are cases where, in most of the cases, because of the temperature, the yeast will eat up the biomatter, and the leaf will become thinner. So that's why, depending on the temperature that you control, and how you control temperature, by flipping the pilons. So when you reach a certain temperature, you're gonna open the pilon and release all the gases and build up again, so you can lower that temperature. You can always control the fermentation by keeping the temperature always the same, or you can play with. and the outcome of the flavor will be different. If I do cold fermentation for a long period of time, I'll achieve something. So it's another interesting topic that I love. Um, Different to the fermentation process as well.
Right.
Some leaves are meant to be fermented for a long time. That's another myth buster here. Some leaves are not. I get a leaf from Jalapa, which has a very kind of poor soil. When I say poor soil, very little biomatter, a lot of minerals, rich in minerals, but doesn't have a lot of biological nutrients elements on a. That's very sandy. Sandy soil.
Right.
Yep.
So the tobacco has a lot of iodine and magnesium, so it have the sensation of sweetness. That's what we perceive when we smoke Jalapa, right?
Right.
That sweetness that you have, if you ferment the tobacco for too long, you not necessarily.
Right.
Sometimes, most of the time, the cigar is ready to smoke right now. And then when you age, leaves that are meant to be aged will eventually, that flavor will become more predominant. Leaves that are not meant to be aged, that flavor will disappear. Now the blend is different because now you don't have the Jalapa presence anymore, but you have a lot of the Esteli that ages really well.
Okay.
And the Esteli will smooth out, and then the taste profile of the cigar will change over time. Not because it's getting better, it's just because there are tobaccos that are meant to be aged, that now they are reaching their plateau, when actually tobaccos that are not meant to be aged are decreasing in flavor and strength.
Wow.
So there's always this interesting variation.
So do you these areas where you're hanging the tobacco and then you're piling them, is that outside temperature, is it controlled or is it all natural?
It's really natural. So we choose certain times of the year. There's a tobacco season, right? So in Nicaragua, for example, especially on the higher altitudes like Esteli, Condega, you have usually we start like germinating seeds around early November, and then planting the seed because that's when the dry season starts. So in Nicaragua, basically the temperature is always the same. What changes is we have the rainy season and the dry season.
Right.
So we plant tobacco during the dry season, so we control the amount of water that we give to the plant, right? And when it's around a cycle of 78 to that we're going to hang them. And we want to make sure there's no humidity, because if it rains too much, then the tobacco will develop mold inside the hanging barn, or it will be really dry, really hard for you to dry the tobacco.
Right.
So we try to kind of choose that season of the year where it's easier to dry the tobacco. Sometimes it's too dry. Then you have to kind of intervene. Usually you're going to look at most of the hanging barns, it's just dirt. So there's no cement, no. We just kind of wet the floor to keep the humidity level, not too dry, because otherwise you're gonna get the candela tobacco. So it's gonna dry grain.
Right. Gotcha.
And that's not desirable for the fermentation later. So remember, there's a lot of people don't know this. How you dry the tobacco will determine the success of the fermentation. Get tobacco straight from the field, green, and you try to ferment, will eventually sometimes get dark and get brownish, and you might think that the fermentation process is doing well, but then the tobacco becomes what we say encartonado, which is you lose the essential oils of the tobacco because of the temperature of the pilon.
Right.
And then the tobacco burns really well, but burns in flames. It doesn't build ash.
Right.
It's almost like you're throwing fire in a gasoline. That's how the tobacco is, and very unpleasant flavor too. So how you dry is extremely important to the fermentation end game.
Wow,
that's fascinating.
Yeah, the process is, without me actually having gone down to a field or farm, it's very impressive. My goal is at some point, maybe hopefully promising this year, to get down to a factory and to see it, to put my hands in it, put my feet in it, to understand, touching the cigar or the tobacco, you know, seeing the rollers roll it or trying to roll myself. I'm
Mhm.
not good at that at all. But you know, I want to see the entire process. And you know, most people, like you were talking about aging, you know, most cigars are ready to smoke when they come out, right? Whenever they hit the shelves or hit the retailer.
They should be.
Right, they should be. And you know, I want to go into what you touched on a little bit as far as like aging, you know, or saving
Mhm.
cigars and letting them age and get better, quote unquote, right? Um, I got told this from Steve Sock, exactly what you said. Steve said, "Why are you aging cigars? Smoke them; they're ready."
Mhm.
Right. So a lot of times, I mean, I've had up to like 800-900 cigars just sitting, right, and just going through them. And at one point, I said, you know what? I got to listen to what he said and just smoke them. They're ready to go. What's your thoughts about consumers buying cigars and said, "Hey,
I think, like I said, you got to be aware that certain tobaccos that are present in that cigar, they'll fade away in flavor and strength. Some of them will actually increase the intensity of the flavor. Some of them will just stay as they are because they already reached the plateau. Let's say some
Right.
Esteli that has already been aged for 3-4 years, they're not going to change, but they will stay like that for a long period of time. It's the same thing with wine. Like if you get some wines like from the Bordeaux region, you can age them for 100 years
Right.
and there's still sugars coming out. And but if you try to kind of age a Malbec, it's not going to work. That's
No,
why
that's a good
Malbec
comparison.
bottles
Yeah.
are extremely thick and the cork is really tall because
Yeah.
you want less oxidation.
right,
So you don't want that aging to occur.
Right.
So if you start drinking Malbecs that are older than like 5-7 years, you're missing the wine.
Yeah.
So you're missing the flavor of the wine. So there's no right and wrong. I think what happens in the cigars is you can experience aging some cigars, and maybe for your personal taste, they might get better, you know, which is it's okay. But if I have to kind of establish a premise, if I create a cigar that's ready to smoke, I want people to experience that flavor that we created. So I would prefer for people to smoke right away. I'm with Steve Saka 100%. Now, people can experiment different things, you know, and kind of try to keep those cigars for a longer period of time. But chances that's what has been actually done than anything else.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people also they think that when we make the cigar, that we have to kind of age the cigar, the final product, uh, at the factory before we ship the product. So that's not actually aging. That is equalization. The cigar, the wrapper usually have 100% of humidity, between 95 and 100% of humidity. The binder is usually between 60 and 70%, and the fillers are 30%. So you have three different levels of humidity in a cigar.
Yeah.
So they need to equalize. They need to become one. They have to have the same humidity. You know, always the outside will be a little drier, but inside needs to have the same humidity. That's why when we make a cigar that's fresh, we have to keep them in a humidor at the factory for at least 30 days. So there's a humidity equalization, which is an environmental humidity equalization, and then it's ready to ship. You know.
It's a very long process.
listen, this is tobacco 101 for everybody who's joining or who's been listening. We're talking to Luciano Morales from Luciano Cigars. We are in the studios. Um, loving the conversation here. Hopefully, you guys are enjoying the conversation as well. I really wanted to get this opportunity. You don't normally get this opportunity to talk to a blender every day. Someone who is in direct control of what's going on with everything that we smoke. So, Mr. Luciano Morales has allowed us to talk with him and get some information. So, let's talk a little bit about the event that was done Friday here at Rocky Patel Burn Lounge. Everyone was happy to see you. It was a nice crowd. You did some fresh rolls on the spot, and I love fresh roll. I do. You can't get any purer than that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you blended, I don't know how many cigars that tobacco was going to go good for you.
Mhm.
What how does that come to your mind? I mean, do you take what people are telling you? Do you take what they looked like that night or something? I mean, what's the process for you to
No,
create a cigar on the spot?
that night was first of all, it was an amazing night.
Yes.
I think it was a beautiful event. I think ATL and Burn, they organized this amazing event. To launch the Wise Blood, the new line that came out for ATL that we produce at our factory and distribute as well. I think the place was packed. Was there was a lot of noise and the music is loud, which I
Oh, yeah.
like. I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
There are nights I love to kind of party and do that.
Yeah.
But uh, blending, rolling a cigar there was like a selfish move.
Hmm.
So I, because of the synesthesia, one of the ways, and that's why tobacco became healing for me as well. One of the ways that I cope with, it's actually blending. When I'm blending, it's almost like my brain is turning off everything else, and I'm just focusing into imagining how a taste profile what will be a reaction of the blending certain tobaccos and what taste profile will have. It kind of smooths out the symptoms that I have. They're very nasty.
So it's almost therapeutic.
It is 100%. That's why when I travel, I bring leaves with me all the time. So it was in my suitcase, anyways. So then we sat there, and then Peter came to me and said, uh, "Are you feeling okay?" I said, "No, I'm not. But that's fine." And I've learned how to deal with for my entire life. So you wanna kind of blend some cigars? And I said, "Yeah, let's do it, man. Let's." So I texted him. I said, "Hey, I have the leaves here, just for fun." It was my way to say, "Listen, if you see me doing this, it's because I'm doing for therapeutic reasons."
Right.
Wow.
So
Right.
and then he kind of opened the table, and that table was reserved for people that were
Right.
kind of waiting, laid up. But anyways, so I think 2 cigars that night, and one of them actually we did it again yesterday. I liked it a lot, so
Oh.
that might become some.
Oh.
Which one did you do yesterday? Was it
The
the
Lancero.
Lon?
Yeah.
I know someone who enjoyed that cigar very much so.
Yeah.
The Cameroon.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, she enjoyed it a lot.
she did.
Is that
Oh,
Okay,
a
good.
lot. BTS.
CTS.
Yeah.
There we go.
There it is. You heard it. So then I know she's listening right now.
No.
Yeah, that was absolutely great. I've seen many rollers or people roll cigars. I've never been successful. Dude, the cigar that I rolled, I still have it in my humidor. I swear to God, Clint Eastwood, the cigars he used to smoke and all the westerns, the cheroots. I swear to God, that's what that cigar looked like. It was horrible. It's a horrible taste. It was like, yeah, I want to put this together. Oh, Jesus, this is horrible. But I had my hand, and I tell people all the time, I'm a better smoker than I am a roller. Period.
Yeah.
No, but that can be learned. Believe me.
Yeah, you know what? I'm willing to learn. I want to learn. Like I said, I want to get down to the factories. I want to put my hands on it. I want to make sure that I bunch it correctly and put that out there, man. But it's a pleasure being able to talk to a blender, a blender of your stature. I mean, as I was talking to Leroy, he was talking about you call it a disease, but I call it a gift. And like I told you the other day, and we were doing the interview with ATL, is that I consider you like the Stevie Wonder of cigars, because there's not, to me, in my personal opinion, there's not too many people anything on anybody or wishing bad luck. But after you're gone, I don't know if people are going to be able to do the same things that you do. You can remember something, you can see something, you can smell something, and understand that, hey, I want to put this together and it's going to be good.
Yeah, man, you use a lot of kind of kind words, and it's hard to take that level of compliment. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I don't think I deserve that, but I appreciate it very much. Your kindness.
The consumers say different.
I think I think that human beings they come in a package. Like just talking about pain, disease versus gift. I think actually sometimes they are the same thing. You know, if you look at to uh, a lot of the like the genius of our society, right? The best writers, the best philosophers, they all had depression. They all had anxiety syndrome. They had, you know, some had ADD. You
Yeah.
know, I think we all welcome bad things and bad things within our personalities, our how our brain is wired. You know, I think on the synesthesia that's more bad than good. You know, I mean, if you experience, and the way I try to explain to people, you can physically feel. When I say physically, it's like sometimes you can actually feel pain in your body. Try to imagine, and maybe people can will understand what this is. Try to imagine, you know, when someone like scratches a surface and that gives you like that kind of
It's like,
terrible
Goosebumps.
feeling,
yeah, like
or
fingernails on a chalkboard kind
yeah,
of thing.
or you go to a concert and the bass is so like strong that you start feeling stomach sick,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
affect, or someone is kind of the music's so loud, someone's yelling at you all the time. There comes to a point that you just cannot stay in the same way. You gotta leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So multiply that by 10 times.
Jeez.
So that's the
Wow.
suffering and the pain that you get. You know, someone is scratching that surface. You feel that, multiply that by 10. It's like it's super intense.
Wow.
It's a lot of pain. It's a lot of but then of course, you know, over the years you learn how to deal with, and then there's some cope mechanisms that you develop yourself. There's no medication for. Like we try. My parents, you know, took me to all sorts of psychiatrists, kind of run tests and stuff. It took years for me to get the diagnosed, and then eventually, you know, understand and kind of learn how to deal with the situation. But I do look at the, let's say, the small part that comes with the package, you know, like um, the people call it the superpowers, but they don't understand the pain, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
Does it? Because it can turn you into getting on that table and rolling. Does it? I mean, will you like at Burn? I mean, have you had a lot of instances where you're out and you're like, I gotta do this? And
Yeah.
the second part of that, has it turned into something that would be you'd be proud enough to put out into the market? Like,
Yeah, that's all the time.
yeah,
That's how that's how it works. That's why some, like I said, like, you know, sometimes, so you're doing something just because of the therapeutical reason, and then eventually you got into something disruptive, you know.
yeah,
Like, um, it's it's an interesting process. Sometimes you're putting a lot of effort because you're commissioned to create something. Let's say, you know, when, you know, we came from the opposite side, right? We didn't create a brand and then a factory and then a processing and then farming. We start farming, then we had the processing, then we make cigars for other people, then we launch our brands. So I've been making cigars for other companies for a long time, you know. And when you commission to something, have that, like, again, it's easier because then you just achieving something that you were commissioned to do. You
right,
know, like, go make a cigar that kind of have this strength level, have this predominant characteristics, and you send a blend and they approve it and that's it, right? Uh, but then when you're doing this every day, you stumble into something new, something that you haven't actually experienced before, or and then you say, okay, now I got a product, you
yeah,
know. And sometimes the journey from this point get to the product will be the story that will be. I started with my daughter having a dream when she was 14 years old, after a very traumatic experience that she had. She was having nightmares and stuff, and then one night she had this dream of a woman that she said that she could not help, and the woman dies. So next morning, which is the cigar band you saw there, or it's my tattoo here. I
yeah,
can show you that. So she had that kind of dream of that woman, and she did the drawing. And then 4 years later, when she turned 18 years old, we received a box, a package with letters that my mom wrote to me, to my grandparents. And when we opened the box, the family was all in the living room. So when we opened the box, the picture was flipped down, and then it said Maria Lucia, 18th birthday. in Portuguese. So as soon as I flipped that photo, my daughter looked at the photo and she says, "Oh, that's the woman of my dream."
Oh my God.
Wow.
And this was like, I'm talking 11 years ago. So when she's 24 now. So 6 years ago, it's when she saw the picture, but she drew that 12 years ago,
Wow.
which is the band. And then when you look at the photo, let's see if I have here. It's like it was, mind blowing. Everybody was like crying, and it's crazy. So and then I did that exercise because of the synesthesia. I can memorize. I remember the texture of her skin. I remember the her smell. I remember some personality traits that she had. Although we lost her when I was really young, but the girls have never seen a picture. We talked about a time where there's no digital
Right.
photo. This
Yeah.
Right.
and I never actually had a my mom. I had a very complicated life too. I was raised by my grandparents with my uncle as a brother,
Mm.
and um, she always struggled a lot in life, and she's super smart. She learned uh, things really quick, but she was a survivor. She didn't have many opportunities in life. But
Oh wow.
this is a picture of my mom. This is, if you look at
Sorry,
the
you guys can't see
details,
this.
Yeah. Yeah.
if you look at the details of the forehead
Mhm.
and in the nose
Correct.
and the chin,
Yeah,
and
it's all
and
there.
even
wow.
like the hair arrangement and
Yeah,
the flower arrangement that
So your daughter drew this, not seeing this picture before.
she'd never seen this picture before. Yeah. So I'll try to show here. Let's see if people can see. It's this not work. Okay.
I think that
Now you
works.
can
Yeah.
see it.
Yeah.
There you go.
Incredible.
Yeah, give a few seconds here.
That is
Yeah, that's a beautiful. That's a
totally phenomenal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So this journey uh, then became sort of like I never put any pressure. I look at this image. I said I got something to honor because she was always overlooked, and I just wanted to do something that will kind of eternalize, her image, especially for my kids and for our family, close friends and stuff. So then I had in the back of my mind always kind of create a brand called Maria Lucia. We trademarked, and I just kept there, and then it became a natural process. One day, because on the blending every day, one day I felt like this is actually it. This has her.
That's cool.
When you smoke that, you feel that her personality is on that taste profile.
Yeah.
I
That's
think that
great.
was
And I'm gonna tell you, I mean, I'm as I'm smoking this cigar, I do get some type of a floral kind of note.
Mhm.
It kind of puts me into the story of what you're saying, and it's phenomenal.
Yeah, I think so. About the cigar, right? I think there is a. You said something interesting. It is floral, but usually you don't see floralness and earthiness together.
Yeah.
No,
And
and I do get the earthiness too. Yeah.
and also you don't see like usually a broadleaf that has that specific taste profile. And the reason being is I like to say the broadleaf is the easiest cigar to make and the hardest cigar to make.
I was gonna say, yeah.
It is the easiest to make because you can basically hide all your scenes with the Connecticut broadleaf
Right.
wrapper. You can use any type of tobacco. You wrap in a broadleaf, that broadleaf will be always predominant.
Yep.
But like making a broadleaf that stands just not like broadleaf you smoke.
Yeah.
That's the challenge, and I think we achieved that by using tobaccos with high acidity.
Mm.
Like the Peruvian that we use, this Dominican from La Canela. Those are all tobaccos with really high acidity. And when you add that in contrast with the Connecticut broadleaf, using the two binders, another thing too, there's a lot of strength in this cigar.
There is.
It's just muted, so you don't actually perceive as a strong cigar. You perceive as a medium taste profile, but it delivers a lot of nicotine because there's a lot of kind of high prime
Yeah.
tobaccos, a lot of the hit, a lot of viso. So it's actually a bold smoke that doesn't that you're never going to perceive as a strong cigar.
Yeah.
And kind of fits all palates. And it tells a lot about the story of my mom too, because she was someone that could walk into any room and kind of control that room, no matter if it was the president or was like I don't know
Anybody.
janitor. She'll relate and talk to everybody. And I think that cigar kind of everybody.
That's awesome.
It
Sounds
is.
like my mother.
Yeah, my mom talks to everybody too. Yeah. But no, this is one fantastic cigar. I really do enjoy this. I'm glad that you pulled this out for us. This came from your personal stash, so it's done well.
Is this available in the market?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It is.
Good.
It's available at the Burn. It's available in several stores here.
Great.
I think it's probably, I'm not going to guess the number, but it's probably around 700 stores in the United States so far.
Wow.
Nice.
Well, you guys, this is a lot of information.
Yes.
A lot of information.
Good.
Hopefully you guys got something out of this. This is going to be continued after we're done here.
Yeah.
So hopefully you guys enjoyed this interview. This is probably one of our favorites.
Yeah, it's tops for sure. Can we talk about one more thing? Do we have time?
What we got?
I want to talk about Tiago Splitter. I want to talk about how you guys met, what his effect has been on you and the company. Me being a huge NBA fan, I know those teams that he was on in San Antonio, and I want to know how that came together.
So Tiago is Brazilian. So am I. We met a few years ago, different events, different things. Tiago left. He's German descent, but he was born in Brazil. His family's from Brazil. He left when he was 14 years old to play in Spain. Already, like he was always this kind of bright kid, also in school and also in sports. We had a connection a few times. It was kind of, here and there, like we go to the same event and we see each other and we always talk. And it was always superficial. And then from the San Antonio Spurs. I sent Tiago 2 or 3 boxes of cigars. Actually, I sent this to an agent that was super connected with the team at the time.
Yeah.
So, and this was actually a year before. This was 2013 or 2012. I don't remember that they played Miami Heat and they lost.
Yeah.
I think it was 2012, final 2012, I think.
Yeah.
So I sent a box of cigars to Tiago, so they lose at the final, and he had the cigars there. So he got so pissed that he trolled. He actually got that box and threw that box of cigars into the Miami River.
What?
Like he was super pissed. Like
wow.
Those guys, they went out together. Like, fuck, man. They were super upset that they lost. But he had no idea that those cigars were mine or anything like that. But
way to go, Tiago.
Yeah, but they kept some of those cigars in the locker room, and then went on. There was still some boxes there, so they cracked the box and they all smoking that same cigar, and it was coincidence because it was a cigar that we produced, we made for them.
Yeah.
So making a long story short, now this is 2014. Tiago is living in Los Angeles. So we met a common friend and we have dinner together, and like our relationship got really intense. So Tiago got married. So I went to his wedding, made a cigar for him as well. We just became good friends. And then Tiago is the one who convinced me to launch our own brands. At that time, we didn't have any brand. I was just making cigars for other companies.
Yeah.
And then Tiago came in, we got to do this. And he became a partner in the company, and here we are, So
That's awesome.
I always thank him for being the guy who really incentivized and he was a visionary and still is. So he's really involved into the brand development, like ideas of brands and and he's a cigar connoisseur. He's this amazing palate too. So he's always involved in everything. So we have sometimes, always when he can, because he's coaching the Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah, he's in the
Right, yeah.
Yeah. Now we don't know what's going to happen in the future, and I'm not sure if he's gonna renew the contract or not. But right now, he's really busy, so it's hard for him to kind of be on the
team
calls all the time. But he's very much involved, and he's a dear friend of mine that I love. It becomes
cool.
it's just like you too. It's when you see it and you feel like, man, I know this guy for years
forever.
and years and years, forever. But it's been almost like 8-9 years of a very kind of deep relationship.
That's right.
That's
Amazing.
awesome. That's awesome.
Cool stuff.
Well, insider stuff,
Insider stuff.
man.
Yeah.
We tend to get behind the brand.
Unfiltered and raw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
That's what we do.
So thank you guys for joining us. This has been a time. That's what I can say. It's been a time. It's been great.
Amazing. Yeah.
Appreciate all you guys following. Make sure that you subscribe. Make sure that you hit that bell so that you know every time that we go live. And also check out the social media, Barrels and Leaves BTB. And also make sure that you follow Luciano Cigars. Make sure you follow ATL Cigar Co. And smoke them. Smoke them when you get them.
Smoke when you get them. Thank you so much.
My
Luciano. This
pleasure.
is
My
amazing,
pleasure.
man.
Thank you very much for the invitation, man.
Yeah. And
Really
Peter
enjoyed the
for
conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
coming from Gross Studios. I love it.
Gross Studios, you guys. All right, man. You guys have fun. We appreciate you
watching.
guys.
Have a great rest of the Sunday.
Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your week. And we are out of here.
We're out of here.